We are back with another episode of Discover Dunwoody's Conversations. I am Mark Galvin, and I'm the Director of Marketing for Discover Dunwoody. We enjoy bringing people to you that share their expertise or knowledge so that you are better informed. Today, for the first time ever, I think, we have a guest from out of state, California to be exact. She wins the furthest traveled for an interview award. I am so happy to introduce all of you to Beth Rylaarsdam, and I practiced that before the show. Your name is easier to say than it is to read.
For
So I'm going to say it again because I want to make sure everybody gets it straight. Beth Rylaarsdam. Beth, welcome.
Absolutely. You got it down, Mark. Absolutely.
Well,
yes.
I am so glad that you reached out and you connected with us because you were coming in town for a conference. And then we started a conversation about the type of work you do, and we'll get into that. And as a result, you decided that you worked it out. She made it work on her schedule to join us. So thank you for being with us today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So you are, one of the reasons you were in town is you were a speaker and you had a fashion show down at the Ravinia.
Yes.
But you're also you're a motivational speaker, a plus size model.
Yes.
You are a social media influencer, and
Yes.
you guys are going to be blown away when we get into our social media. You're also a champion of the body acceptance movement.
Absolutely.
And you've created a lifestyle brand called Curvy Girl Beth.
Absolutely.
And
yes.
one of the main things that you wanted to, that we wanted to talk to you about is lipedema awareness.
Yes.
So we're going to get into all that fun stuff. So once again, thanks for being here. We so appreciate the time.
Thanks for having me. The advocacy work is probably my most, important work. That's my passion project, my purpose, and so yeah, that's really important to me.
That's good. So that's a great segue into sharing. What do you do, and why do you do it?
So a few years back. So I spent most of my life as a recruiter and a mom, quite frankly. And then I learned about this new disorder that I was afflicted with. It's not new in any way. It was discovered in 1940 in the US at the Mayo Clinic. It was written about. And nothing was ever done in our country until about 2010 when some researchers took to digging into what is this disease that affects 1 in 9 women, 11% of women that we know of. I'm pretty sure it's higher than that in my personal estimation. As you look around, it comes in all stages, in all sizes, and kind of all similar shapes, but a different affect can be seen. It is a disease that primarily affects women, that typically presents itself in puberty, pregnancy, or menopause.
Okay.
And it is characterized by additional adipose tissue in the lower half and in 80% of the cases in the arms, typically seen in the upper arms. And so when little girls are reaching, and it is typically 90% women, so typically not seen in men.
Okay.
It is a connective tissue disorder, actually, and it has interaction with some other connective tissue disorders. So you actually find people that have a lot of co-conditions, or like we like to call them, comorbidities. So hypermobility is actually one of the things that often goes hand in hand. And so it's kind of interesting that people will be amazed that you can see someone in a much bigger body than what you typically see on a gymnastics floor can, at age 70 can be touching their fingers to the floor, and you're like, wait, what? But that's part of the hypermobility piece.
Wow.
And this connective tissue issue. And so it is very typically undiagnosed for decades. I think at our conference they just reported that people go for at least 9 years misdiagnosed. I know so many people that it took much longer than that, myself included. I was diagnosed in 2017, and that was a shock to me because I had spent my whole life chasing a smaller body and chasing a different shape, and did, you know, every diet you could imagine, and had more gym memberships and more time in the gym than, you know, the average person. And so it was kind of a shock to find out that I had this, you know, it was so clear. Like, and how did no one ever know or say anything? And it's because we still, although there are you know, a core group of people working on this and are expert, you know, by this point, you know, a little over 10 years in here, it's still 100% misunderstood by the medical community because most people don't ever know about it.
So interesting.
They're not taught. They have there is a little connection with the lymphatic system, and in medical school, even today, there's like, you know, something almost as small as like an hour that's dedicated to the lymphatic system if you're not specializing in that field as an overall thing. So it's fascinating, absolutely fascinating.
So I'm curious, and we're not, you know, the biology and the science
Sure.
and all that is that's a whole other class.
Correct.
But the basics here is that there are, what has happened? I mean, and I want you to share this. What is it that we've learned that causes this? What's going on in the body of someone who has lipedema?
So we don't know that there's a gene yet. There has been a little bit of gene identification in Italy, but it's not like an overarching thing yet. And there is lots of thoughts that this is hereditary, but not
So do
really
you think
official.
it's hereditary?
Yes, because my mother had the exact same
Okay,
shape, and
all right.
she was Italian, and I never thought that there was something wrong with. I thought I was Italian, and that's why I looked, you know, had this shape. You know, very small on the bottom, much bigger on no, yeah. What did I say?
I think you meant it the other way.
Yeah,
Smaller on the top.
smaller on the
larger
top,
bottom.
bigger on the bottom. Yeah, that was probably projecting, I guess. Anyway, and no, actually, quite honestly, I've always been fine with my shape. It's been various sizes in my life, and so that's always been my, you know, thing. But interestingly enough, my mother had 4 sisters, and she was the only person shaped like that.
Interesting.
So my thought that we're Italian, of course. Like, how did I get that idea? Like, you know, I don't know.
Well, and I think it's really interesting, and especially when you say that that people with this condition can be very flexible and move really well. So in some ways, it's almost complementary to some body movements. Is that a wrong assessment, or does that? Or did I
mean,
misread
you would
that?
think, I mean, like I said, the amount of time that many, many, many women put in at the gym, and the amount of, for lack of the right word, you know, I guess proper nutrition for themselves that doesn't result in, you know, I like to say, because I can walk into a gym and then somebody will be like, oh, I can help you with that. And I'm like, I'm sorry that I don't present with the knowledge that I have, but I'm good. You know, I've been at this for 20 plus years. You know, I can handle myself in a gym. And, you know, somebody, you know, and then I go at it and then they're like, oh, like you didn't just start this week on your first diet?
Right.
You know, it's pretty fascinating.
I think that there's so many aspects here. Fortunately, or
Yes,
unfortunately,
we don't
for
have
us,
time.
we only have 20 minutes.
Right.
I kind of want to shift, but I do think it's really interesting. Your advocacy, and you've shared this, that you're a champion of the body acceptance movement. a lot of what you just expressed are things that I'm sure you talk to women, and I will say women because most of the folks that that have this condition
Absolutely.
are women, where you're able to help them see that, you know what,
Absolutely.
you should accept who you are and be thrilled with that.
Absolutely.
How do you do that?
I think actually across my platforms on socials, I have both female and male followers, and I think that the male followers also gain insight into things themselves, because we like to think that just women are critical of themselves and their bodies, but men have jumped on board as well.
Oh, yeah.
And
Men have secretly been
yes,
conscious
I
about
was
that.
just going to say that I think that it's been a little bit more pervasive than one lets on, because I do often get, thank you so much, you helped me to look at it in a different way, or even like what I'm wearing to the gym, like, oh, I wore a sleeveless shirt to the gym even though my biceps are not like all the, you know,
Yeah.
the muscle heads, so to speak.
Right.
And I really talked a lot about that in the pandemic. I actually started my social media work in 2019, and then 2020 hit. And I did lives every day that, you know, we had lots of conversations, and, you know, I learned that it was all of us that need to have even just the concept of acceptance in general. Because if you see the typical media, we've always been taught, like, follow this thing, do that, do this, you know. Everybody should look like an Abercrombie model and wear those clothes, and, you know, well, no, that's not it, right? Everybody should be themselves, right?
Right.
And I like to coin the phrase, you know, you're perfectly you. You know, in the beginning there was I kind of thought, oh, people talked about being perfectly imperfect. And I was like, no, because our creator didn't really, you know, like, everybody is whole until they decide that they're not.
Right.
Right? And that really comes from the person and all the input that they've had.
That's fascinating. And you are, and you've talked about it before we started taping, you watch what you eat, you are exercising as you've already expressed, and so you do the things that everyone would define as ideal.
Yes.
So you are in great shape.
Yes.
And it may not be the Abercrombie model that that folks are seeing, because, well, let's be honest, I don't think there's that many people that look like Abercrombie models, and frankly, the way they get there is probably not the most healthy way either.
Right.
So I love that you shared a little bit about your social, and I was wondering if the pandemic helped you grow your social. Do you have tips for anyone that's interested in social media, how they could turn their social into something positive? Because I do want to mention here, you have 367,000 followers on Instagram and 279,000 followers on Facebook. And I'm asking only because I'd like to get that many followers of our Discover Dunwoody channels. How can we do that?
Yes. Yes, across all platforms, I actually have like over 750,000, you know,
Amazing.
in my audience, and it's crazy. And yes, I did. I mean, I did start. I mean, literally on July. I consider the launch of my account July 13th of 2019.
Wow.
And I
Okay.
was in New York City at a model casting call, and I was doing a live walking around the city, and I had 450 followers, and I thought that that was insane.
That's terrific.
What, like, how is that crazy? Like, that's, you know. Anyway, fast forward to starting the pandemic, and I think I had about 35,000 going into the pandemic, and then when we came out, like, let's just call 2022, the same time, you know, March of 2022, I think I had about 200,000 more.
Wow.
So it was but during that first year, from I guess, yeah, from about June 2019 to June 2020, I did a live every single day for an hour.
Wow.
And
Video really is potent.
yeah, and there was times during that time period, like I could be on a live and there would be like 30,000 people on my live. And I didn't know anything, so I just thought this was normal. I didn't know that this was accelerated growth, or you know, perhaps I had something to say people were interested in, or you know, whatever. Whatever. I still don't have that idea, but in any case, I believe that it takes a lot of hard work. I think that one of the things that's really important, and this is actually contrary to what a lot of people will say that will tell you how to grow your social media, I think that stories is extremely important, and I think that tagging is extremely important. And so in stories, I believe, you know, they change things every day. So like, let's just say in Instagram, you have the ability to put 10 tags in your story. Well, most people, most social media people will say, stories only go to your audience. Well, yeah, because you're just taking a picture of this, you're putting it up, and that's it. Like, so yeah, only yours. But if you tag 10 different things that apply to that, then they get fed to that, and maybe perhaps they end up in the stories of that tag.
Right.
So that was.
Did you tag accounts that had a large audience?
I did not, because I did not feel like if I didn't know you, I didn't think I could tag you. That was not if it was maybe an overarching thing like plus size models, then yes, I tagged that. Okay. Or in the beginning, if it was another account that had a similar type following or something that would be of interest, then I would talk with that person and be like, can we tag each other or whatever? Good. And I would talk to them, like legit, and they thought I was crazy, because they were like, what do you mean we're not texting? And, you know, I was like, no, like we're, you know, what's your name? Where do you live?
You're kind of old school.
Yeah, because I think it's all about connection. Like that's what I was there for, right?
And by the way, that's not a dig.
No.
Old school is good.
Yes, it is. And so that's one thing. I think that if you can do it, the live is important to connect with your audience and they know you're a person. So I learned at some point, because people think that their favorite creator, they think they know their favorite creator because they're watching them in their stories all day long. Right? They're like, oh, hi, this is what I wore today, and this is my breakfast, and this is what my kid did, and this is what I'm working on, right? And so the audience think they know that person, right? Because they think that person is talking to them. Right. Well, I didn't do that. I actually talked to the people. But what I learned is that many
people showing up in your feed, by name, like or by handle.
Yeah, if they were in my live and they had something to say, I was talking to them directly, and I was just authentically me. Right. But what I learned is that those other people who are doing that in their stories, they're definitely afraid of people. They're introverts. Right. They don't. Well, I'm not that. I'm not an introvert in any way, shape, or form. I think we're all in it together, and we can all help each other in whatever it is. Yeah. Right? And so that's what I wanted to do. I wanted to grow a big, happy family. So.
I love that. I think that's fascinating. And the thing about social media is twofold. Number one, you have to engage.
Yes.
And you have to get that algorithm to help you connect to other people, and the things that you did worked. But I do think it started with what your goal was, and you enjoyed engaging with people.
Yes, and then your consistency is key.
Yeah.
So I did it every single day. There wasn't a choice, and I never did a trend.
There was a choice. You decided that.
But for me, there wasn't a choice not to do it. Like it was like, this is what I'm doing, so I have to do it every day. It didn't matter, and I didn't have consistency in when I did it.
Oh,
So
wow.
you didn't know that I was doing, like I have never, still till this day, which is not necessarily a good thing anymore, but I have never scheduled a post. I have never
But you're-
pre-made content. It's
Okay.
like raw, you know, like I'm in the moment. I'm like, oh, today I talked to Mark about Dunwoody. So, okay, guess what? I'm going to go home and I'm going to do a post about Dunwoody now. You know, like,
So I have bad news. We're
Yeah.
taping this, so this is kind of like scheduling it.
yes, that's okay. That's okay.
I love it, particularly because you're doing it yourself. You don't have somebody else doing your social media for you,
Right.
so that even makes it more authentic.
Yes, I do have a web team for the past year.
Oh, that's
And
good.
they help with my website. And they help me, like, you know, kind of nudge me along, like, okay, we need to have a blog about this, Beth. We need to, you know,
Some
add
strategy.
this, you know,
Yeah.
some kind of that, yeah.
So I'm going to shift gears. You must have a business. There's a business component to this. And as a former entrepreneur, still an entrepreneur, you don't think you ever stop being one.
Sure.
How do you make money?
So you might remember that I originally reached out because I was coming to town,
That's
right?
right.
And so one of the things that is helpful is to reach out to a tourism board wherever you're going to be and see, is there anybody, so with the numbers that I have, at a minimum, I mean, seriously, quite frankly, I probably can get you more eyes on your business, your accounts, your projects, whatever, your product, than any radio station, any commercial, any whatever, and at a much lower rate than you
Right.
would find, right? So I reached out to you to say, hey, do you guys have any campaigns going on? And is there something we could work on together? And at the moment there wasn't. And you're like, well, wait a minute. Let's see if we could, you know, let's do a podcast together.
Yeah.
So here we are.
Yep.
So that's one way. The other way is certainly working with brands that need promotion. So that's kind of more from a smaller perspective, but then from a bigger perspective, like, you know, big brands that need the same thing.
Sure.
And working on those campaigns, and that can be, you know, just a one-time thing, although that one-time things don't really work so well, quite frankly, because people need eyes on it. So my collegiate background was marketing, was my major, advertising was my minor, and fashion was my concentration.
good.
So this is kind of all in my wheelhouse, really, still, you know. And then I just have a kind of Curvy Girl Beth merch and then some t-shirts as part of my merch line now.
Right.
And that's more like fan-based stuff, or like people in I have a group called Transforming You on Facebook that's very small and intimate right now. And so it's more for, like, you know, people that are, like, I just launched a t-shirt last week called Thriver. Well, you know what? Guess what? Pretty much anybody who's in my world wants to be a thriver if they're not, right?
Right.
So it could be applicable to somebody. And then coming to the conference, I have one called Lipedema Thriver. There's that. And then I do mentoring for, well, a myriad of topics, but usually for people who are looking to change up their, a transformational type mentoring. Usually something to do physically, like I need to change how I'm a lipedema lady, and you know, what should my journey be? What are my next steps? What do I do? I found out, now what do I do? Or how do you switch to incorporating movement? Or how do you learn what's an inflammatory diet and what works for best in that way? And then the other aspect is fashion styling. So, you know, when people have a weight loss and then they need a new image, right? Because really our image is really what sets us apart from
Right.
everybody else, right? And how are you face fronting when you're out in the public? You know, what do you want to project? Because that has a lot to do with how people receive you or not.
Sure.
So
I love that.
I help with, like at the conference, I just offered everybody a 2-hour fashion and styling consultation, when they got home, and we can do that virtually, or if we're in person, then we can really go have fun at the store or something like that. So those are
That's great.
some of the ways.
So you've got your hands in a lot of things.
Yes.
This is good. You're really busy.
Yes.
I want to kind of wrap things up. And love to ask you this. What should our audience remember after they have watched this conversation?
So I think that you should remember, what I'd like you to remember first is I'd like you to remember that when you're out and about and you see someone, or when you look within your friends and family, your community, and you see someone who might look a little different than everybody else, who might look a little perhaps like they have two bodies. They might look a little misshapen. They might look a little different to you. That it may not just be what you typically are going to associate with obesity, or somebody that does nothing but sit on the couch and eats bonbons all day. I can guarantee you that I have never done that in my life, although I have been injured for the past 9 months and have been in the gym much less than I have been ever in the past 20 years, but that's a whole separate story. But I have maintained my, status, I guess, that perhaps they have this disease called lipedema. Because what we'd like is this disease. We finally got a ICD-11 code in 2022, I think.
What does that mean?
So that means that insurance actually has a code that a doctor could bill under. Never
Great.
before have we had that.
Yeah, that's great.
Which is progress.
Sure.
And then I'd also like you to somehow, there's a little touchy situation of how do I approach somebody that I might think has lipedema, and how do I not be offensive. So I always like to say, blame it on me. Say, hey, I saw this girl, curvy girl Beth. Have you ever seen her on socials? You should go check her out. And then, you're like, wink, wink. And then the person comes back and goes, oh my gosh, who ever heard of this? So that's an easy way.
Oh, I love that.
And then I'd like you to know that as a professional, if you're traveling and you're really looking to, not even if you're traveling, just, I'm just thinking people that are coming to this area, but anyway, that you can always reach out for a fashion styling appointment, even if it's virtual, and you can elevate your presentation. I was telling Mark before we started, his presentation is fantastic because his shirt and his pocket square and his jacket, but those two are kind of his accents that really elevate his look. And so if you're looking to polish up your look, whether you're a man or a woman, you could always reach out for some guidance or mentoring in that area. And certainly for anybody who's been in the weight loss game or in the lipedema game, maybe you already know about lipedema and you'd love to connect, reach out for that as well.
So all that is such great information, especially the tips on fashion. Where should people go to find more about you and maybe connect with you?
I think the best way is to connect to my website, which is curvy, C-U-R-V-Y, girl, G-I-R-L, Beth, BETH.com. And there you can join my email list. You can find different tabs with more information on lipedema, about my modeling work, how we can work together if you're a business or if you're an individual. You can reach out there. You can even schedule in a consultation that way.
That's great.
Yeah.
Well, thank you very much. And by the way, thank you for letting me know that the blue was a good color. I like blue, and so I'll just go out and buy some more of it.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's a winner.
I love that. So, Beth, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you very much for having me.
Of course, this is such an interesting conversation, and I love that you reached out to us before you came into town, and you joined a conference that was going on over at the Crown Plaza Ravinia. So next time you're coming back to Atlanta, give us a buzz again.
Yes.
Love to hear about your progress and
Yes.
what's going on in that space.
Yes.
Lipedema is something that I think we're going to hear more and more about.
Absolutely.
And I do have a feeling that you're probably going to crack 1 million followers. I'm just predicting it here. You heard it here first. Play this video in a year when you have 1 million followers.
Okay. I'll get
Deal?
back to you. I
All
will
right.
get back to you.
Thanks for so much
Thanks
for coming
so
and
much,
joining
Mark.
us today.
Have a great rest of your day.
Absolutely. And for all of you, thank you for watching. I am Mark Galvin, and I'm the Director of Marketing with Discover Dunwoody. Our producer is Madison Holtz. Our sound technician is Emily Inser Gibson. On behalf of the entire Discover Dunwoody team, thank you for watching. Be sure to follow us on all the social media channels using Discover Dunwoody, or check out our website, discoverdunwoody.com. Until next time, enjoy the day and come discover Dunwoody.